All right. Welcome to the last regular season week edition of Roughing the Passer. And you have all three of us this week. The last couple of weeks, just been me and David Lee holding it down. We were joined again by Jordan, who looks like he got in a fight. He's got a Band-Aid. But uh, two happy Steeler fans here, David Lee. We weren't expecting to be feeling this way. Now, one thing still has to go down, but assuming that it does, and we'll talk about that. So, with that being said, let's go to the scoreboard as we usually start out the show with. Again, last week of the regular season, and let's go to the scoreboard first, and then we're going to go over how the playoffs look. So today's games, we had the Jets losing to the Bills. The Bills clinched the AFC East with a 27-10 win. The Saints did what they had to do to try to get in with a 30-20 win over the Falcons. The Dolphins ruined the Patriots' party plans with a 33-24 victory. Well, the Dolphins finished at 9-8 on kind of an uptick there. The Seahawks 38-30 over the Arizona Cardinals. The Buccaneers look primed for the postseason with a 41-17 win over the Carolina Panthers, who are going the wrong way at 5-12, and we'll see if Matt Rule survives. He's been, I've heard both sides that he might get fired, or they're going to give him one more year to make a playoff run. The game going on right now, which actually has playoff implications, assuming this game does not end in a tie, the Steelers will be playoff bound. If it does end in a tie, both teams actually will go get in the playoffs, and the Steelers will actually go home. So we're hoping for a non-tie in that game. Let's go to some more games. We had the Bengals resting most of their team except Jamar Chase lose to the Browns 21-16. We had our Steelers, who had to win, eke one out in overtime 16-13 at different points in that game. Didn't look like it was going to happen. The Washington football team, at least until February, beat the New York Giants 22-7. Giants finish at 4-13. The Minnesota Vikings beat the hapless Bears 31-17, and we'll have to see what happens with Mike Zimmer. They finish at 8-9. It's all but written that Matt Nagy will be looking for new employment after a 6-11 year. The Lions beat the Packers 37-30 to finish 3-13-1. And me and Jordan were talking. Dan Campbell looks like, I know it's crazy to say that about a 3-13 team, but they're making strides. The Dallas
Cowboys. You skipped the Colts one, but I think you look at.
I'm saving that for last.
But just in comparison, the Lions and Jags records are virtually the same, but you have such a different feeling, I think, about the 3-win Lions team than you do the Jags team. And I think the main difference is really the direction kind of the head coach.
Yep. No, it's true. The Texans and the Titans won 28-25, but the Texans, I'll be honest with you, were in the game most of the way, and Davis Mills actually played well, so maybe they found potentially their next guy, at least for the moment. The Cowboys yesterday basically doubled up the Philadelphia Eagles 51 the 26. And the Chiefs got Vic Fangio fired, probably more than just the Chiefs, but that game definitely, the Broncos really had that game and kind of gacked it away in the end, 28 24. And the last game I'm going to mention here was what we really needed to happen to even have any chance besides, beating the Ravens. We needed the Jags to basically upset the Colts. I did not expect it. I thought the Colts were going to win this game in runaway fashion, and we'd be playing for semantics and just a division bragging, hey, we beat you twice type of deal. But the Jaguars get it done at home. Trevor Lawrence looked more like college Trevor Lawrence than what he's looked like most of the year. And Carson Wentz did not look like an NFL quarterback too much. We'll talk more about that, I'm sure, in Game Balls and Goats. But the Jaguars get it done, and that game finished before the Steelers game did because the Steelers game went into overtime, and that whole side of the field knew what their outcome of their game meant, and they got it done. So the Steelers are in, barring some sort of crazy tie in the game that's going on right now. Let me switch to the playoff scenarios, guys. All right, so here we have the AFC playoff scenario, and the Titans will be the number one seed. The Chiefs will be the number two seed. The Bills will be the three seed. The Bengals will be four. The Patriots will come in the fifth slot. The Chargers and Raiders right now are sixth and seventh. The winner of that game will be the sixth pick, assuming it's again not a tie. And the loser will be out, and the Steelers would be the seventh pick. If for some reason this game, please Lord, but if we got to talk about it as a possibility, so it isn't. If this game is a tie between the Chargers and Raiders, the Chargers will be the sixth pick, and the Raiders would be the seventh pick, and the Steelers would join the Colts on the golf course and not on the football field. The Dolphins were eliminated, even though they won, and the rest and the Ravens were eliminated with that loss, and the rest of the most of the other teams were eliminated before this week, and the Colts, by virtue of their loss, are now out as well. Let's go to the NFC side of the house here. We got the Packers, despite losing today, will be the number one seed. The Buccaneers will be the two seed. So it might, the road to the Super Bowl might run through Lambeau. The Cowboys, David Lee's team, will be the three seed. The Rams will be the four. The Cardinals will be the fifth seed. The 49ers will be the sixth seed. The Eagles, who would have guessed it, will be the seventh seed. And the Saints finish at 9-8 in one slot out of the required playoff. And so there you go. So the game going on right now is really the only thing that's going to sort of finish up the scenarios where the seeding will be. So we kind of know who's in. Let me get back on the screen here. Let's go and put up our picks screen as we do. I believe, without being official, I think David has clinched the regular season title. He had a 3-game lead going in. He got the Kansas City game right thanks to that scoop and score late. Otherwise, that would have opened the door. Arizona, Jordan, did they cover that or no?
No, they lost.
No, they lost.
That's right.
That's not right.
Yep. So there's you're 1-1. Cincinnati got beat, so you're 1-2. And what was the final? That game was sort of high scoring. So you went 1-3. You went 1-3. So you'll finish at 39, 32, and 1. Will go to me. I was actually in second by half. No, actually Jordan was in second by half a game. So let's go to Jordan. He lost the Arizona game. He lost the Indy game, as did I. The Jets game was a push. They lost exactly by 17, and we both got Pittsburgh right. So if I'm doing my math, two, 1, 2, and 1. So Jordan will finish at 36, 33, and three ties. He set a new record for ties with his picks.
Hopefully
Going
that's
to
the
me.
last time today.
And here's a stat I'll share. Speaking of ties, but let's finish this segment up, and then I'll share some. Tennessee won, but not by 10. Indianapolis did not win, thankfully. I picked this game using a little reverse psychology. Washington covered and Pittsburgh covered. So I finished the week at 2-2 and 37, 34, and 1. So I finish in second, 2 games behind David, and
Yeah,
Jordan
but I
finishes
think I
three
might
games.
have a better win percentage. I think I might be in second based on win percentage.
Yeah, no, I don't know. There is it's first or either. What's that from Talladega Nights? Either
You
first
might have
or
more
your
wins,
last.
less losses, and more
Yeah.
ties. So they gotta
Well,
like what
David Lee
adjustment.
win. David
Yeah,
Lee
I know.
wins the
We're
regular
fighting for
season
second place.
picks.
Well ahead.
You know, so um, uh, we will be doing the show during the playoffs and even in the off season. Maybe not every week in the off season. We'll pick our spots when there's a busy news week. We'll talk about some free agency and some movements and maybe some coaches changing or just packing up their offices. During the playoffs, we're gonna start at 9 p.m. A little half hour earlier, get done a little bit earlier and kind of cover. But we're also going to do the pick segment in the playoffs as well, with the spreads and the whole thing. So David Lee will win the regular season title, and we'll have one for postseason games as well. So less time to win it. So if you get off to a bad start, you're probably doomed to not get it done. But I want to remind everyone we're on the Six Pack Coverage Network as well. Check out their YouTube channel. You can catch this show if you're not watching us now and you want to watch us after the fact. You can catch our show there the following day, so Monday, and you can hear us in audio form also Monday and later on all major podcast platforms. So one thing that happened today, assuming the Raiders and Chargers don't tie each other up, the Steelers became the first team. I didn't realize this, to have a tie in the regular season and make the playoffs. You would have thought that happened sometime before, but it never happened before.
Yeah.
And I was talking to a friend of mine as we watched the game today, and I said, "Man, that Detroit Lions tie really looks really bad now with what's going on." And he goes, "Yep." And he goes, "Yeah, no team's ever made the postseason in the NFL that has a tie on its record. That will change, barring any kind of crazy
Well,
shenanigans in this
it'll
Chargers."
change no
Right.
matter what because the only way we don't make it is if that game goes to a tie, which would mean two teams make it into the playoffs with a tie on the record. So no matter
Yeah,
what,
so it's
Steve's
it's
getting
it's
into
going
the
to happen for the
playoffs.
first time this year. Either way, but let it be us rather than two other teams. So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, just kind of before we get into the game balls and goats, and we're going to try to keep this show at either an hour or even maybe a little bit less. We'll start with David. I mean, now that the regular season's kind of wrapping up, just some of your thoughts. Anything stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of looking at what some of these teams are looking like heading into the postseason. Like, you know, it seems that the Cardinals and the Rams might be kind of limping in, where the top two teams are. It's a repeat of what we saw last year in the NFC. I don't know how legit the Cowboys are, given they beat the teams that they're supposed to beat, and they lose close games against some of the better teams, it seems.
I gotta
Outside of
ask
that
you something,
Broncos
Dave.
game when they got their butts kicked.
I gotta ask you. You're a Cowboys fan. You're in Dallas. I gotta ask you this. I know in the national media, not, and I'm assuming probably if it's happening in national media, it might be happening also in local wise. Mike McCarthy is not generally. I hear more bad stuff about him. That the deal. Basically, this team's winning despite him. He holds them back. Some of his game management's been questioned. I mean, as a fan of the team who watches them on a week in, week out basis, I mean, what's your take on Mike McCarthy? Is he the long term guy there? Obviously, they're playing in the postseason, or is he a liability like a lot of other people like to paint him as?
I think you'll find out if he's the long-term guy here, like this postseason or maybe next year. Like let's see some postseason results. But yeah, a lot of the local talk here, especially like local sports radio, it is a lot of questioning some of his in-game decisions, and he's always billed as, hey, he's won a Super Bowl. That was a long time ago. That's been a while, So the game in the league has kind of has changed a lot since the Packers won that Super Bowl, So, but yeah, there's a lot of local talk that way too. But yeah, I mean, let's just see some results. And I don't think you don't have to have a Belichick type of coach to to win a title, but obviously Jerry Jones is fully behind him, or so he says. But yeah, I mean it's going to be show me some results, but this isn't a team that you're going to wait around several years to do something with. And just kind of, and that was kind of my point bringing it up, of like looking at the NFC and the AFC of these teams that you would feel really confident going into the postseason. And for the Cowboys, I think you're just kind of feeling like, I kind of hope to get lucky a little bit. Hopefully they can get past San Francisco and then maybe get lucky in the next round. But yeah, it's outside of the Bucs look pretty good. The Packers obviously look good, even though they lost, but that didn't hurt them today. But outside of those two teams, I would be a little shaky. I'd be a little worried if I was a fan of some of these other NFC postseason teams. And I'd probably say that the AFC is maybe even a little more muddy. The Chiefs had a really great run. The Titans have done really good without Derrick Henry, I think most people would say. The Bills are kind of shaky. The Bills are kind of the Cowboys of the AFC. If I had to pick an AFC postseason team to kind of say that they're kind of Cowboys-like, I would probably say it's the Bills. So that's kind of how I feel, right now. I would say the Packers are probably number one, overall in both conferences. But I'm just kind of looking at confidence-wise. Who would you be really confident about, and who would you not be confident?
Yeah, Jordan, what's your take now that we've sort of basically are a half away from wrapping up the regular season here?
I think you have a couple teams who are a little bit more solid now than they were earlier. I think teams we expected to be there at the end are really starting to come into form. Like David said, I think Tampa Bay and the Packers, I think just Rodgers and Brady are kind of going to be there. So I think that's always going to be a big thing. They have the playoff experience. That's just a massive experience boost compared to really everyone else. I just think the Chiefs are really starting to turn that corner. I think they went on that kind of long win streak, and they won a kind of a close one this week. But I think that offense is really starting to kick into gear. But really, the rest of the AFC, so many teams were really fighting for that playoff spot or for that division, and no one seemed to lock it up even till this week. You still had Buffalo and the Patriots were up in the air for the division. You have the Colts just missing out. You have Pittsburgh really sneaking in, with Baltimore really available there too if a couple things change or go a different way. And then even like you said, we got the last half really of football in the year, and that determines who's kind of continuing. It's still I think you've got a couple of those top tier teams that you have really the top batch of quarterbacks with. They're probably a little bit more stable and have that foundation going into the playoffs. But really, down from those three, the Packers, the Bucks, and the Chiefs, to me, it's really kind of up in the air. And into this last week, we still don't have much really clarity on teams going into the playoffs. I think there's teams in the playoffs that didn't really expect to be in themselves. That might be one of those. And I'm not saying, obviously, being a Steelers fan, you kind of have that hope, but it might be one of those things where you see like the Giants team who beat the basically lossless Patriots in the Super Bowl, or that '08 or '06 Steelers team who's a sixth seed and kind of runs it through the playoffs. You might see one of those teams who kind of snuck in, get this new breath. They thought they were kind of packing their bags to go home, and they've got, if we keep winning, we just get one more week. I think we're still. We've said it. I feel like every week. As next week, I think we'll really see, and it's just tough. Next week's the playoffs. You don't really have any more time to kind of iron things out, and now it's you're playing your best game no matter what. And I think we just still it feels like you've got three teams who kind of know what they're going to do, and then it feels like almost every other team you're not sure what team's going to show up. You have teams that look like they can beat anybody any week, and then another week they're tying teams like the Lions. So I think it's an ultimate kind
Well,
of.
the Chargers sort of epitomize that team.
The
One week they
Raiders,
look
I
like
think, are the
world
same
beaters.
way. You've got the Bills who look like world beaters one week, and they lose to the Jags. They lose to an iffy Steelers team early in the year, and it's just it's you can't really trust any team. I think that's the big thing is you have faith in certain aspects of team, but you don't trust that you're going to see that team. It feels like
I
with most teams, you're just not sure.
I think the NFL got what they wanted, guys, with adding the extra week of regular season play and an extra playoff team in each conference. I think they got more games that matter to getting into the dance, as we say. And like you just said, Jordan, we got a game going on right now that has playoff implications for the teams playing each other and for a team just with their fingers crossed that it doesn't end in a tie and their tickets punched. Surprises to me. I won't go too in depth. We'll keep this. I don't want to ramble on, but the Bengals, and I'm not just saying this because it's in our favorite team's division, but literally everybody, or 85, 90% of all prognosticators, including us, I believe, picked them to finish last in the AFC North. And not only did they not finish last, they won the AFC North, and they look formidable themselves with that offense. And I think that's what happened is I knew, I like Joe Burrow probably the most in this room, and Jordan probably the least in this room. But I'm a believer in that he's a legit, very solid quarterback. They added Chase to that wide receiver room, which was already fairly strong with Higgins and Tyler Boyd. Joe Mixon, sort of hit and miss, but when he hits, he's really a very solid back,
Yeah,
and
I
they've
think
improved.
they took a
You
book
know,
from the Chiefs kind of playbook and really said, like, we know our line might not really be a top tier line, but if we get enough weapons, they're bound to beat you. They're bound to kind of make that splash play. And we've seen they've had those difficult weeks where Jamar Chase didn't seem to get those plays, and they're kind of stuck in the mud. And then you see really how they finished the year. Where I mean, obviously last week they're going nuts. You know what I mean? 500 yards, crazy stuff.
And I'm not predicting them to win the Super Bowl, but this is a team that legitimately can beat anybody on any given Sunday, as the cliche goes. And that this is from a team that most experts picked to finish last in the AFC North. I knew they were up and coming, but that just got fast tracked. They clicked. Zach Taylor may be the right fit there, and they're going to be formidable in that AFC North. This isn't really a 1 year wonder type of thing. Not with that roster, not with that lineup. And so the rest of the AFC North, I'm sure, is taking notice how fast you can sort of reload and rebuild and be in the playoffs like the Bengals are. The Giants. I thought the Giants were sort of going to be like the Bengals, not a high power offense, but enough, and we saw how that works. So, but here we are at the postseason. The one thing I'm looking forward to the most is this is the playoffs. We talked about this a few weeks back that I think anybody really can win on any given day. Even we talk about the Chiefs, Jordan. They did not play great yesterday. That game was more of a Broncos type of win until they gacked it towards the end of the game. So I don't think that I think if I'm picking teams that kind of stand out, I think it's like David Lee said. I think it's the Packers and the Bucks, and what's the common denominator there is they have two quarterbacks with a lot of postseason experience, two quarterbacks with Super Bowl rings, one with he needs two hands to wear them all, and Rodgers with his one. And so I think that experience is going to make them probably a lot of people would say they expect sort of a Green Bay, barring an upset, they expect a Green Bay, Tampa Bay sort of NFC championship game. But again, a lot of things can happen, and we've seen. I mean, you got the Jaguars beating what was going to be a playoff Colts team today and knocking them out of the playoffs. So I think that sort of performance can happen in the postseason. Because let's be honest, there's going to be 14 teams in this postseason better than the Jaguars are, at least on paper and on roster wise. So it's going to be fun. I did not expect the Steelers to be talking about them past this week. Here we are. I'm a realist. I'm not expecting a lot of damage done by them. It's just I'm looking at it. Hey, it's another game for Ben Roethlisberger to play, and we'll have to go 1 week at a time. And they haven't shown any reason to look too far ahead past any one game. So but hey, they're in. It's the old saying, right, guys? The old poker term. All you need is a chip and a chair. Well, it looks like they got a chip, and it looks like they got a chair. And in a way, they're playing with house money, because I think if they, truth be told, I don't think a lot of people that you're not going to maybe won't admit it, but I don't think a lot of people in that locker room thought the Colts were going to get beat by the Jaguars today. They were hoping, and hope came true, and here we are. So let's get into our game, our segment. It's going to be our last regular season edition of this, and this is our game balls and goats. Let me put it up on the screen here. We may have some different ones. It's sort of a different week where some teams were sitting some guys and getting them some rest to stay healthy in the postseason. I'll start out with the first game ball. He was in that Detroit Green Bay game, and this guy, he had a great week last week. I don't think I picked him last week, but I picked him this week, and they might have found a guy, a new receiver in Detroit, and that's Amon Saint. What's his name? Saint Ross Saint. You know who I'm talking about.
The guy.
Yeah, that guy. 8 catches. If he keeps playing like this, we'll have to remember his name. But 8 catches, 109 yards and a touchdown. He had almost double digit catches last week, over 100 yards, and I think one or two touchdowns last week. And they found a diamond in the rough. And Detroit, I don't know how set they are in Goff, but for now, he's the guy, and it looks like they have a connection in the making. I still like DeAndre Swift. Not a great year for him, but I don't think they're going to be looking for a running back. Not yet. It's too soon to pull the plug there. So that Campbell is a fiery guy. Guys appear to like playing for him. So I think they're moving sort of in the right direction, and they might have their number one receiver from this year's draft. So that's my first game ball. We'll go to David. Give us your first game ball.
I gave one to Jimmy Garoppolo with also had to give a wink to Deebo Samuel too, just for taking out the Rams. Not necessarily Garoppolo's like full day, but just the way he played at the end of that game, going into overtime, and I just thought he really took control, and that was a super important game, for the 49ers. It was an important game for the Rams too, with the Cardinals kind of, at the same time ended up losing, but those three teams end up making it in. But I just thought that was an important game. It was technically on the road, but there was plenty of 49ers fans there. But so that just kind of stood out to me, just kind of stepping up when it mattered most. And I think they were down 17-0. It might have been 17-7. I forgot, but just kind of taking it into overtime there. I also had to give a nod to Deebo Samuel. He ran for a touchdown. He threw a touchdown pass, and he had 95 yards receiving, which was a pretty good day. So that was kind of cool to just kind of see them step up and kind of take over. And that's kind of why I said earlier that the Rams seem to be kind of limping into the playoffs, even though they still have just a ridiculous amount of superstars on both sides of the ball. That was. I had to give one to Garoppolo just for his late game performance.
Yep. Well, we'll see. You will see too how that once their season's over with, how that quarterback room shakes out too with Trey Lance waiting in the wings. Jordan, your first game ball.
So I went with Trevor Lawrence. I think he's made a lot of not good lists. And I think this game was kind of a game no one really expected them to win. And he came out, I think his overall game was solid. 2 touchdowns, 225-ish yards. So nothing else like crazy. But I think the big thing was just coming out and starting. I think the first drive, he was 7 for 7 for like 80 yards and a touchdown. And I think that was really the big thing. Whereas I don't think the Colts really expected a game at any point. I think they kind of thought they were going to walk into a team that has looked honestly very, very bad and has shown really no flashes. And I think when that kind of Lawrence kind of came out, was really lights out, touchdown, and didn't really give the Colts really a second to think. I think that's really what kind of led the day to go the way it did, and the Colts just didn't really have an answer. I think they were going into the game probably looking to really ride what's his name, Taylor. And once they were down, I think they weren't ready to break out of that game plan. And the Jags, give them credit, they didn't really give the Colts a chance to kind of slowly run their way back in. They just kind of shut that down. And then unfortunately, Wentz didn't really answer the bell either. But I think a lot of credit goes to Lawrence really to just come out and kind of to spark that kind of doubt in the Colts' head that I don't think really existed at all going into the game.
Yeah, I can't argue that. You could make an argument that it's probably Trevor Lawrence's best performance as a rookie this year. He saved it for the last week. Thank you Trevor. The check's in the mail and a thank you card. I can't argue. He didn't make my game ball list. I'll full disclosure, but I get it, and I'm not sure. I'd have to pull it up, but I know he's been struggling coming into this week, and I think he had like 2 touchdown passes in the last like 8-9 weeks of the regular season, and he hasn't thrown multiple touchdown passes in one game since earlier in the season. And so to come up with that performance, at this point in the season, hats off to him. Thank you. And, it had definitely, as Steeler fans, it definitely was a huge deal. We'll kind of snake draft this, starting with you, Jordan, then we'll go to David, and then I'll finish up. One of your goats for the week.
So I'll kind of just go back on that. I wrote the Colts as a whole. I think a lot kind of goes on Frank Reich here. I think this is a game you're going into. It's win in playoffs. All you have to do, you completely control your destiny. You don't rely on any other teams, and you're going into a team that's I think was 2-13 and has really shown no promise, like you said. Yeah, they haven't been able to really throw more than one touchdown pass, and it seems like almost over half the season. And all you've got to do is win. And it seemed like he thought they were just going to kind of roll over and let Taylor run pretty much to the end zone uncontested. And I think once early on that wasn't the case. He didn't seem to have an answer. He didn't seem to really want to adjust even. And that was kind of shown on the scoreboard. I think Wentz, unfortunately, I've defended him a lot, but there's times he just doesn't make the throws that are there. And it's tough because a lot of times he gets criticized for forcing too much, but at the same time, there's times in a game like this, you've got to make some throws. You've got to be kind of a player in your offense that makes a difference, especially when it was going the way it was, and he really wasn't able to kind of step up. I think a little bit of that falls on the play calling, and really, as of late, I think they've kind of gone into the Taylor offense, and just that's what they're going to do. And today, the Jags really didn't let that happen. I think they were going to make Wentz beat them, and Reich and Wentz themselves, I don't think either of them really stepped up, and I don't think Reich let Wentz do it. And when there was stuff for Wentz to do, he didn't seem to really reach out and take it either. So I think just the Colts all around to go into a game, it's just it's tough on the players too. That's a game, all you have to do is win. The want, you know what I mean? That drive to win should be there, no matter what, and to just show up as bad as they did. Against the team that's looked as bad, especially in recent weeks after losing Meyer and whatnot. It's just kind of an odd performance, and it makes, even if you keep all the guys going into next year, I think it just leaves kind of an odd taste in your mouth for the Colts, especially the way they kind of had that spark and really looked like they could have been a decent playoff contender if you get hot, and then to just kind of fizzle out to end the year like that is it'll just be interesting going into next year.
Yeah, I won't argue that pick. It's a good one. I didn't pick the whole team, but it's not my turn yet. But I will say this: it makes you bring up a point. I just wondered, did they think like they just had to throw their jersey on the field today, and that the Jags would just take the L and go home? It looked. I didn't watch the game, but I watched highlights, and just by the score itself, it just makes you think. Did they have like just one of those kind of practice weeks where they just thought this game was sort of in the bag? They could probably even win it with their second unit and let's just coast into the playoffs. And like you said, when Lawrence came out with the first drive, didn't throw an incomplete pass and put 7 points on the board quick. The old Mike Tyson line, right? Everyone has a plan until they're punched in the mouth, right? It was like the Colts plan was no plan. Like, we don't need a plan. We're just going to beat this really bad, hapless Jags team. Then they got punched in the mouth, and they didn't know what really to do. And, they never seem to recover. So, they lost last week too. So they finished the season with a 2-game slide and watching instead of playing, and
They got
opened the
crushed.
door for the Steelers. Yeah. So, David, who's your first GOAT of this week?
Yeah, same one for me, and that's why I laughed when Jordan said that, because I
Yeah.
looked at the Colts just all together. It absolutely was one of those, an additional playoff game where you win and you get to keep going. But yeah, I mean, it was a team that was for a while there really streaking behind Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't think he's had a 100-yard game in the last 3 weeks or so, but I think he had like 77 yards or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
A decent average. I didn't watch the game, but I don't know if they just didn't give him the ball enough, or and Jordan touched on Carson Wentz and his kind of schizophrenic performances. You just can't rely on
That's
that
a good
anyway.
word. That's a good word, David, for Wentz, is schizophrenic. I think
Yeah,
you've got two quarterbacks there in a way. It's
yeah,
like
no doubt.
he can be really good, or we can see what we saw today, and now they have sort of an issue there at quarterback. This is the exact reason the Eagles let him go, basically, and he just can't seem to shake that. If
Yeah,
you want to
he
call it
peaked in
schizophrenic.
2016, his rookie year, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah.
But
It's
yeah, but and also just to lose to the Jaguars,
yeah,
come on, you're a kind of a rising team in the AFC. It wasn't that long ago when Andrew Luck, basically just said peace, I'm out. And they
yeah,
kind of had to start over. In a lot of ways. But Jonathan Taylor looks to be a top 3 running back in the NFL right now, and so you would like to see a team like that kind of step up and take care of business against arguably the worst team in the league. The Jets might have something to say about that. The Lions might have something to say about that. But a team that just got rid of their head coach and has a rookie quarterback.
yeah.
So it's I don't know if it's a case of, like you said, just they thought that that they would just kind of step on the field and be in the playoffs next weekend, but that's not the case. So they're going to be watching alongside with the Jaguars now. So
Hey, how crazy is that? And just to close out the first GOAT with the same sort of thought process, I didn't give it to the whole Colts. I gave it to Wentz today. That was a putrid performance. Again, I didn't watch the game either. I watched the scoreboard because it was on at the same time the Steelers game was on. They were switching to the game and showing highlights, and it seems like every time they switched, it was either the Jaguars touchdown or Wentz, gacking the ball up either on a pick or fumble. I read he was responsible for 6 potential turnovers. Now he didn't turn it over 6 times. There was a couple fumbles where the Colts recovered it themselves. But between actual interceptions, lost fumbles, and balls on the ground, he had potentially 6 turnovers in play. Yeah, and that's just you're going to get a GOAT from me when you do that in a game that you have to win to seal your playoff entry. I like Frank Reich as a coach. Maybe not the best 2 games to close the year out, obviously. So that's why I didn't really give it to the whole unit. I don't disagree. I mean, I think there was probably maybe some bad practices this week, and hey, we just got to show up and we have this game. It's cake, and and maybe that is I think it is on Frank Reich if they kind of walked in there with that attitude, quite frankly. So we'll just I gave it to Carson Wentz. We'll spin it back again, snake draft wise. We'll stay with GOATs. I'll give my second GOAT after Wentz. Joe Judge for the Giants. Went from the minute it seemed like the Giants sort of gave him a vote of confidence in the media that, hey, we plan on bringing him and Daniel Jones back. it got really bad. I mean, the last 4, 5, 6 weeks, not only lose, but just get blown out and not competitive. And the Giants have a dilemma here. You know, you can say one thing and do another. That's no problem. But they gave him sort of a vote of confidence, but I don't know if you can keep him. I think maybe it's time to move on. And, that team's performance, I know he doesn't play. I know he's just the coach, but he gets a vote of confidence. And I don't know what happened. I don't know if he rested on his laurels. I don't know. But they played their worst football. They didn't play good football most of the year, but they saved their worst football once he got that vote of confidence. And so I'm gonna give my second goat for this week to Joe Judge. And then he made me and Jordan talked about this too. He made some comments, that he was commenting on Washington fighting on their own sideline from the week prior. The week you're about to play them, you're in no position. Your team is one of the worst teams in football, and you're commenting on the Washington sideline antics. Like, worry about your own team. You can't even get your own team competitive. What are you worried about? I almost said the old nickname, but what are you worried about Washington? What they're doing on their sideline? Worry about like playing a competitive game against them, which didn't happen today.
This very brazen arrogance about how they're not this clown organization, and they're just very straight, and they all play hard, and everyone wants to be a Giant there, and it's all well and good, and I'm glad everyone there loves the color blue and loves to go play.
We do it the old cliche,
Jordan. 4 wins, you know what I mean?
We do things. We do things the right way. This line, we do things the right way here. Well, some of those things you're doing the right way is losing the right way, and lots of 13 games.
Yeah, he made references about how you don't see guys packing vacation bags in front of their locker room and all this stuff, and it's like you might as well let them, because you've been eliminated for weeks now. It's just very odd to see kind of a coach digging.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. I'm like you,
kind of to solidify his organization, and you got 4 wins. It's not the time to really dig in your heels and be like, we do it the right way.
What are you doing the right way? Losing 13 games the right way? I think the Giants would say we'd like to win 9 games the wrong way, Joe Judge. Joe Judge, my second one. Jordan, second goat.
I went with Jake. Well, I went with Jake Fromm. 15 for 31, a touchdown and 2 picks. I think it's tough. I didn't really expect him to do well, but I think anytime you're under 5 or 50% completion, you throw more interceptions and you do touchdowns, you're just kind of asking for kind of a rough day. It's a tough defense they played, but I mean, I think Washington threw the ball 12 times on the whole game. Just kind of an ugly game, and to throw the ball 31 times and to lose to a team, I think they threw it 12 times, no touchdowns, no picks. Just, I just think all around bad from the Giants. But to kind of trot out a guy like that and to have him almost not look like a NFL level quarterback is kind of even more like salt on the wound.
Well, Jake Fromm might be actually working at State Farm for real.
That's really why he didn't look like an NFL level quarterback, because he's not. So I shouldn't have expected too much from him. But
he didn't make my list, but I can't argue with a bad stat line. So Jake Fromm might really be working at State Farm. But David, your second goat for the week.
Yeah, I'm sticking with the Giants. I had them too, and just more specifically that third down play that they ran, that quarterback sneak with Fromm. It was a 3rd and 9, I think, from their own 5, something like that.
Yeah.
And they run a quarterback sneak, and it just obviously just gets hammered right after the snap. And the cameras kind of go to some of the fans' faces, and they're just like, "What the hell's going on?" You don't even try. You might as well take a knee. You know, it
Well,
makes sense to maybe run a quarterback.
David. Hey, we didn't pack our bags up prematurely like other non-playoff teams. If that's what you're hanging your hat
No,
on, Judge, like
if you call a quarterback sneak on 3rd and 9, you're not only packing your bags, you're mailing the envelope, you're licking the stamp and putting it on there and going to the mailbox and just mailing it in.
That's after they've already fired their first offensive coordinator coming in.
I'm obviously super familiar with Garrett, but yeah, I mean, it's just like, you know, at what point do you just turn around to the fans and just throw up your hands? But it's one thing to run a quarterback sneak from like your own 1 on 1st down just to give yourself like a little bit of room. But I don't know. It was just so weird. And for it to happen in the last game of the season, I think it made it extra like give up, you know? I don't know. It was just so that kind of play call, the situation, all that stuff is them into the off season.
All right, let's keep with the snake draft motif. Go back, starting with David. We'll go back in reverse. How about another game ball from your list?
I gave one to your guy TJ Watt just for tying the sack record, even though it took him an extra game. But that's super impressive, no doubt. He was my pick for Defensive Player of the Year. I think he was all three of us picked him for Defensive Player of the Year. So he ties Strahan's single season sack record. A lot of people say that had sacks been an official stat. Back in the days of Deacon Jones and those guys, that it would have been higher than that. But his brother almost got there twice. You know, his brother was super close twice, and he did it with 22 and a half sacks, tying it, not beating it, but he ties it. So I had to throw that out there. And also, just helping the Steelers make it. So that was that had to been called out. I had to call that out.
Yeah, they don't get there without he didn't make my list. But I will say this. I want to the Steelers would not be in the postseason without TJ Watt on this roster. I mean, this is the worst offense in the league, so the defense had to carry him.
They're not. I mean, they're not the Chiefs, but we're not the worst. We could have Zach Wilson.
Statistically, we ranked the worst offense in the league. Yeah, is all I'm saying. Yeah. All right, but here's the thing. If he don't win the Defensive Player of the Year this year, and Micah Parsons had a great year, but he is a rookie. He missed a couple games, and like if TJ Watt don't get it this year, it's never going to happen because this is, we talk about the sacks, but he's got a couple interceptions. I think he leads the league in even tackles for loss. Yeah. Tackles for loss, batted balls, like across the stat sheet when it comes to a defensive player, he's right there in a lot of them. So in a year where your Aaron Donalds had sort of a quiet year, Chase Young, some of your other big name candidates, and the Dallas, and I don't mean this as a disrespect thing, but the fact that Micah Parsons is even in the conversation probably indicates it's probably a quiet year for some other people. He had a great year and they found their guy, and he's going to be in this conversation for this award probably most of his career every year he plays. I'm talking about Micah Parsons, but I think this is TJ Watt's year. But go ahead, Jordan. Who's your second one, I believe?
I went with kind of a combination. I went with Russell Wilson and Rashad Penny. It's kind of was a meaningless game for them. It really doesn't have much. They're out, and it was a game for the Cardinals that changes really kind of seeding and kind of with the Rams and whatnot. What was going on there, and the Seahawks kind of came out and just played really with the Cardinals and ended up really outplaying them. Penny went for 190 and a touchdown, and then Wilson only had 238, but 3 touchdowns and only 1 pick. I just think it was nice to see kind of a team like that that really didn't have anything to play for, kind of go out and play and take it to a team that was really fighting a little bit for seeding and whatnot. I think they showed like pretty good heart and really took it in a game where if they don't and they just kind of crumble, you kind of understand as much as you don't agree with it. You know what I mean? But to see him kind of go out and just kind of play hard just to play hard was pretty good.
Yeah. No, I picked Rashard Penny. So, well, since you mentioned him, he was my second game ball. Big rushing day. Didn't have a ton of totes, but just had some big chunks of yards. You win a 38-30 game. Russell didn't have a great, played good. He didn't. I mean, he didn't have like a standout, let's say, stat sheet. And potentially his last game as a Seattle Seahawk. I think potentially I don't see him or Pete Carroll both returning, and they both could be gone as well. So we'll have to see how that plays out in the offseason. So I gave my second game ball to Rashard Penny, kind of kicking it back the other way. I'll give out my last game ball. That's going to go to Darnell Mooney in a losing effort for the Bears, 12 catches, 120 something yards. He's looking like, the Bears haven't had a really great receiver. It seems like years. Allen Robinson came over from the Jags. He's been, a little bit nicked up, but they haven't had sort of a homegrown wide receiver. I thought Anthony Miller was going to kind of be that next guy. That did not
It was a
pan out.
steal.
Yeah. Kevin White. Kevin White was a high pick that everyone thought was going to be sort of can't miss. Well, he missed big time, and so I think they hit a little gold with Darnell Mooney. Now they got to figure out. They might have figured out their quarterback with Justin Fields. They're going to have a new head coach, so they've got some pieces in play. Their defense is actually not too bad, and so for the next coach coming in, whoever that might be, and with a strong draft this year, we could be having this conversation potentially a year from now, talking talking about them being headed for the playoffs. I'm not saying I predict that, but when you see what the Bengals did in sort of that quick fashion, and again, I'm not saying Mooney is Jamar Chase, but he's a pretty good wide receiver. They got David Montgomery too, so there's some pieces there with the right coaching hire. They can go from sort of also rans to potential contenders quicker than I think some people might realize. And so I like Mooney. He's played well majority of the year, so he gets my second game ball. Going back down, Jordan. Whatever really direction you want to go in here.
Yeah, so I got two left. I went with my one game ball. I went with Davis Mills. Um, a game he went 301 yards, 3 touchdowns, and that was a game they kind of fought back and kind of fought to make it a game late. And like he knows, I think he's really earned himself at least a look for next year, if not on the Texans. I think really a shot somewhere else. I think he's done a lot with kind of a team with really nothing there. With so much kind of the whole Deshaun Watson thing, he was kind of supposed to be kind of a cardboard cutout quarterback to just kind of sit in there and get through the season. And he's had these kind of bigger performances against teams he's not supposed to really play or even compete with. And they've been competitive in some games, and he's looked pretty good and shown, I think, flashes. I think today, really fighting back and making the Titans kind of keep going and keeping their foot on the pedal and not giving them the ability to kind of back off and rest guys was pretty impressive. And I think it's cool to see a guy who was kind of looked at probably as a likely league backup kind of give himself a shot, kind of like a Taylor Heineke with more potential, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think he's earned, whether, like you said, it's in Houston or someone sees that and says, hey, how do we get this guy on our team? here? What do you need to have for him? Type of deal. I think that's going to happen in Buffalo with Mitch Trubisky as well. I think someone's going to reach out. It might even be our own team, the Steelers, that make those kind of phone calls and say, what kind of round draft pick do you need for us to get this person here? And I don't know if Houston's going to want to trade him yet. They still got to figure out the Deshaun Watson situation, which I mean, let's not go down that road. But I mean that situation, I mean, it's just still sitting there. No word from the league as to what a suspension may be. Tua, who was a guy that was mentioned in a trade package for him, actually played well this year, and so that's going to be the off season is going to be loaded with stories. We think the season's loaded with stories. The off season is going to have just as many of these coaches firing, changing teams, players. There's going to be a lot of quarterbacks wearing different uniforms. But Davis Mills, whether it's Houston that says we like you, but we're gonna we're not ready to hand you the keys to the car, so we're trading you here. I mean but he's earned a shot to play, whether it be there or potentially someone else that wants to take a flyer on him. David, either a game ball or go, whatever direction you want to go in here.
One of my other game balls, I gave one to Dak. Tossed 5 touchdowns against the Eagles. I kind of railed on the Cowboys last week, but it's kind of one of those things where, like I said, they kind of beat the teams they're supposed to beat. But 4 of his 5 touchdowns came in the first half, and none of them were to Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, which were the 2 guys that you would think would catch at least 1 or 2 of those. So maybe that gives you if you're a Cowboys fan, maybe that gives you a little bit of confidence of the depth of what the offense is capable of. But we've also seen this offense kind of run in the mud a little bit. But Dak finished 21 of 27, 295 yards and 5 touchdowns. So that's the type of performance you want to see heading into the playoffs and beating, a borderline playoff Eagles team. But the Eagles are at least kind of quietly had a winning season. But that's the kind of performance you kind of want to see from Dak. And I think Dak finished with the 3rd highest passer rating in the league this year. But so it's kind of one of those things. Which Cowboys team are you going to see in the postseason? But 5 touchdown passes, obviously a career high for him, and I think he broke Tony Romo's Cowboys single season record for touchdown passes yesterday. So of course that's with a little asterisk with 17 games. So, but good performance there by Dak.
Who is there anyone left on your either side of your list?
Yeah, my goat list finishes up with kind of an obscure one, but I went with N'Keal Harry, the wide receiver for the Patriots. He was the last pick in the first round in the 2019 draft. He was the 2nd wide receiver drafted that year, and he only has like a little less than 600 total yards for his career. He had no catches today, so it's like in kind of coming into the NFL, he was kind of one of those physical anomalies. He almost kind of like a DK Metcalf, not with Metcalf's speed, but he's a big dude. He's like 6'4", 225. He's just really been a massive, massive bust for a team that historically just always drafts the right guys and always seems to find the right pieces in the right spots, the Patriots. So I just hope that I kind of thought that he would have kind of stepped up by now, but he's really just kind of been been a non-factor ever since his rookie season in 2019. So I had to throw him out there too.
Yeah, I won't argue. I thought, I remember, obviously I remember the draft not that long ago, but to me, he was the number one wide receiver, I thought, in that draft. Obviously, as you just pointed out, he hasn't bore that out and has been a big disappointment on a team that really kind of needs a receiver sort of to step up, and he really hasn't. I don't know. I don't know the issues there. Still young, might need a change of scenery, kind of a deal, a new start somewhere else. But that they call the NFL the not for long league, right? If you don't perform, fairly quickly, you're going to be on the outside looking in. And I'm a little surprised. I had him as my number one receiver ahead of Metcalf, and obviously was wrong there, at least at this point. Jordan, who's left on your list?
I just had Zach Wilson, 7 for 20. I think he had a touchdown and 87 yards, and it's just I think the big thing with him is it's just give your guys a chance, give your receivers a chance. I think you can't in the NFL be sitting around 50% completion. You just won't last. I think you've got, even on a bad team, you've got guys that can make plays, and they can't make plays unless they have the balls in their hand. Yeah, and I think we've consistently seen Zach Wilson struggle just to distribute the ball. I think there's times he makes flashy plays. I think last week he looked a little bit better, but it just you can't have consistent times, I think, during the year when, and I know it's his rookie year, but when you're not able to get your playmakers the ball. That can happen. I just think 7 for 20 for 87 yards is just and I know the Bills are a good defense. It's just that can't happen. It's a division team. It's a team you've seen.
And you're going to play him twice a year.
Yeah, I just and that's a tough game. I think this being the last week of the year, we saw Zach Wilson really kind of look like he was taking a step last week, and he looked a bit more explosive. And then you really end your year on a couple percent below 50% and 87 yards against a division opponent who you're likely not going to win, but you can do a bit more than that. And I think to just kind of whimper out of the season like that and back into the top 10 of the draft is just it's I don't know, it just doesn't feel like they're in any different of a place than the Jets typically are kind of year in and year
Yeah.
out.
I think they're not going to come out publicly and say it, Jordan and David, but it's probably a pretty safe bet that many in that front office, if they could do that number 2 pick over again, would probably call a different name,
Well, I
whether
think
that be
what's
Justin
helping
Fields or
them.
Trey Lance or Mac Jones.
Well, that's what I was gonna say. I think what's probably the only thing cushioning that blow is Lawrence hasn't done great. Fields has been okay, but he hasn't really jumped out as like you really missed out on him, and Lance just hasn't gotten too much of a shot. So luckily, outside of Mac Jones, no one's really like looked kind of as a star quarterback from that class. But
But
I
I
think
think he's looked bad enough, though, Jordan. I think he's looked
yeah,
bad enough for them to say we could have avoided this by picking
yeah,
almost any one of these other quarterbacks. He's looking like the last ranked one, which is where I had him as a bust. So did you when we
yeah.
talked about it. And when they reached, to me, they reached for him at that 2 pick, and I think they're sure he shows a glimpse every now and then, but very few and far between. And unless somebody gets to work with him, one of the quarterback gurus in the off season, which can happen, Carson, Jordan Palmer, or someone like that does those off season things. They got a lot to clean up there, and if it doesn't happen, they're gonna, they kind of swung and missed on Darnold, and it almost looks. I know it's early; it's one rookie year, but they might have swung and missed again, and yeah, I don't disagree. We could have probably named this award for him this year. He's made this list from all three of us. I think multiple times. So, anyone else on your list?
No, that's my last
All right.
guy.
My last guy, and I'll keep it short and sweet as we're at 110. Uh, Cordarrelle Patterson overall had a pretty great year, kind of as that what do you want to call him, blade, utility blade type of player, utility knife, running back, wide receiver. Last couple weeks, and then today, really didn't get hurt, just didn't do a whole lot. I think 10 carries, 30 yards, a couple catches for a few more yards, and Atlanta, maybe the end of Matt Ryan, he might be in a new location. They've got their guy in Kyle Pitts. I like him a lot. But Cordarrelle Patterson, who, there was Hall of Fame talk with him that he's starting to build a Hall of Fame resume. Not from me, but people in the press. And, the last couple of weeks culminating with a bad week this week. I'm going to put him on the GOAT list. I know the game itself didn't have really any implications for the Falcons, but if you're trying, he's a journeyman type of guy. He's been on 3, 4, 5 teams. It looked like he sort of was making a home in Atlanta, and it's like a game like today will make you, depending on his contract situation, which Cordarrelle Patterson's real, the one that was looking really good early, or this one we see late that's been on a bunch of different teams. So he'll get my last one. I won't spend a ton of time jibber jabbering about that. The season, just one little final update here on the score. We got the Raiders with the ball in a 2014 lead as the third quarter is winding to a halt, and 1 quarter left here. And again, barring a tie, something I didn't anticipate saying today. The Steelers are in the playoffs, which is still hearing me say that is odd, but we'll take it. And I don't know how long we'll be in the playoffs, but we'll chip in the chair, as I said earlier. We'll take the chair and we'll sit down with the chip and see if we can double up on our chip stack. But it's been a fun year, guys. I don't want to speak for you, but this has been a whole lot of fun doing it and talking about football each and every week. We're not done. I'm just kind of wrapping up the regular season here. It's playoff time, and we're going to do this. Probably 45 minutes to an hour show. We'll do our picks with the playoff matchups using the spread and kind of keep the standings and see, if we can, we couldn't dethrone David in the regular season title. Let's see if we can salvage a postseason picks title. But definitely it's been a fun year. And I said this early in the year, and I think it's going to ring true. I think this is going to be that postseason where anybody can really potentially beat anyone. The games are going to be fun to watch, and it's going to be interesting to see. And even what happens in the playoffs is going to have obviously direct implications to what the offseason will look like as well. So that's going to be it for the last regular season edition of the 2021-22 season. Just want to thank everyone. If you're watching us live, thank you. If you're listening, or if you're not watching us live, but after the fact, which you can do on the Six Pack coverage network on YouTube. We appreciate that. And you can find us on all major podcast platforms. I want to remind everybody for at least the playoff weeks here on Sunday night, we're going to start a little bit earlier at 9:00 and again, try to keep it around 60 minutes or less. So for myself, Jordan Newman, and David Lee, we'll see you next week after the playoff games.